Greg was in a commune, like a cult. Centrepoint.
Yeah, it was called a commune at the time. It was later recognised to be a cult.
Right, would you just close your eyes and let yourself relax for a few moments? Just watch the thoughts that go through. Don't stop them, don't hold on to them. Just watch the thoughts going through your mind.
Centrepoint, the regular Saturday afternoon meeting. A community of over 60 members, operating as a trust with 70 acres of land and assets of over $500,000. Singles, solo parents, families, predominantly middle class, often university educated. Moments of quiet as Bert Potter, the community's spiritual leader, prepares to talk.
When you're ready, would you just open your eyes, please? Try and stay in that quieter space. We were asked how our community goes, how it works. My answer really is, start it and see. Find out for yourself. Don't look for theories. Don't try and work out exactly what's going to happen. Don't come up with all the nice ideas about it. Don't get into your head and theorize about all the loving feelings that are going to be there and all the energy that you're going to create. Get in and create it. Do something about it. Feel it as it goes along. Let it become a growing process. Because the one thing that's certain is that what you do this year will be almost totally invalidated next year. If you're not prepared to accept the growth and the movement that happens, then don't think about communities. Get into a nice little comfortable house in the suburbs somewhere, put your fences up all around it, keep the gate closed and shut yourself off. And you can probably keep things at a fairly low level. But if you move into a community, the first thing is to accept that there's going to be changes. Finding out how to get along with one another, working out methods of resolving all the conflicts and the stresses that come up. I think this is really the key to any community, is how do you resolve the stresses and problems that come up, because they're always there. You can't possibly have a community without them. And so really it's a way of working out these dynamic problems between people that's important.
Bert Potter's solution to interpersonal conflict is the continuing use of psychotherapy. After giving up a successful career as a businessman, his growing interest in group therapy led to the establishment of Centrepoint 2.5 years ago. He could put his theories into practice.
It went for quite a while. It was in Albany on the North Shore. I've been there. Tam's been there and stayed a night.
Yep.
I've been there and, taken him there and picked him up and things like that, because I was doing my nursing training in Auckland and he was at architecture school.
Okay.
At the same time. So, and he had a girlfriend, I don't know how he met her, called Kate, and she was 16.
Yeah.
And he was only about 19 himself, 19 or 20. And probably not 18, 19.
18.
Yeah, 18. And so he moved in with her because she was living with her mum at Centrepoint, and he moved in with her.
So I'm here with Rick Marshall. Hello, Rick.
Good to see you.
It's fantastic to hear from you. Why don't you tell people, our listeners, how do you know Greg?
Well, I met Greg at high school. That's Otamoto College in Taronga. We weren't really friends at college. I think I got to know him better after high school. I was quite friendly with him through from 79 through to 85. 85 I went overseas. We moved in similar circles. We occasionally went to similar parties. I went on a skiing holiday with him for 3 days in Mount Ruapehu, which is in the centre of the North Island. That was good fun.
Yeah.
He was very good company, very funny. He's a year younger than me, and I visited him and his family in Norton Road, Cherrywood. I met his mother, his father. I even met his brother Nick, who was across from Australia at that time. So I knew him from, as I said previously, from about 78 through to 85.
Okay.
And during this period, Greg was at Centrepoint. Greg was at Centrepoint from 80 to 81.
So that was like a commune that was later to be found out as some sort of cult. Am I right?
Yeah, it was initially regarded by the media as a curiosity. In the early days, it was regarded as a curiosity, sort of a commune. But then as all the sexual allegations appeared, the perspective of Centrepoint changed from being a commune to being a place of sexual abuse and sexual exploitation.
And he told me about the fact he'd been in this kind of, what did he call it? A commune, he called it. He called it a sex commune. And he said the reason he didn't like it, and this is why he stopped eating meat, was because, and he doesn't eat meat. It's not just one of these people who says he doesn't eat meat, but does eat meat, just in people's backs are turned. He's not one of them. He does generally not eat meat. He said what it was is when they were killing the pigs, they were like chopping them, and then they were like continuing to saw through, and then they were like twisting their head round to, twisting it round like 360 degrees to pull the head off. And he said it was all just a bit disgusting.
Yeah.
And it put him off, and he just
Put him off,
disgusting. So that would be the point. So he did talk about this.
Yeah. You're talking about Centrepoint, commune, which was basically a sex cult, and that was taken down eventually. Because some of the ringleaders of the cult, they were involved in child abuse.
Well, I mean, this is the thing.
And he did have a friend that Richard says had been his adversary. I thought his name was Mike, but maybe it's not. And I met them a few times, and they were best buddies after they'd been in the session in this room for, what is it, a week or 10 days?
It's 15. There was the guy who started the cult, the commune, Bert Potter. It was his son that Greg had issues with. Probably, actually, when you look back at it now, it's just that power, because he was the son of the cult leader, and Greg wanted to be up there.
Right.
And one of the therapy sessions that the two of them were involved in is where 15 people, male and female, all go into one room and they stay there for a week. There's a shower and a toilet, and their meals are, just put in through a slot in the door.
So they're naked.
And they're all naked.
And that Greg told Tam this.
Yeah, and he said the idea of that whole cult, it seemed to be, from what I got from it, was that sex seemed to be the therapy for everything. So they basically just bonked out everything, all their problems. And so somehow Greg and Potter's son got to be best buddies during these 15 people in a room for a week.
And then later on, a few years later, this guy, I thought it was Bert Potter's son, this guy married Greg's old girlfriend, Kate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But that cult work, the cult leader was imprisoned for paedophilia, and I remember.
So was his son, Rick said.
Oh,
in 1993.
Bert had like a toilet. He had his toilet, and next to his toilet, he had a little kiddie toilet.
Right.
So it was like a grown-up's toilet, but smaller.
Okay.
For children. So he could sit on the toilet with children, I suppose. But anyway, part of his weirdness.
Right.
Yeah, but also, there was just a lot of paedophilia going on there. I can't remember.
Nobody knew for a long time.
I can't remember if this was something that I heard a guy say during the night that I stayed there, or if it was something that I heard on a documentary about Centrepoint community. And he said that they had to do something about the children, because there was a 4-year-old girl went around all the men asking for somebody to sleep with her, to have sex with her, until somebody said yes. And eventually somebody said yes. And that was just like a huge, that was just mind-blowing, that they could have that kind of effect on a baby.
Yeah,
she's
still a
4
baby.
years
Yeah, 4 years old.
her, it's normal.
Mm. Yeah,
And
that's
was
the devastating thing.
frightening.
That is frightening. I mean,
Yeah, and I think Greg thinks that, well, Greg's hate of paedophilias, which, you know, everybody hates pedophiles.
yeah,
Pedophiles.
Yeah.
And then they have a competition.
Yeah. That it's because he was friends with and lived with other pedophiles, and he knew it was going on, and he let it go on, and he didn't speak up about it. So
it's probably a guilt thing.
Totally a guilt thing, I reckon.
It's rooted from his connection to that community. That
and whether he was,
he speaks out against it,
doing it himself, who knows, you know.
So it could either be perhaps.
But I think whatever happened to Greg at Centrepoint, that was 80 to 81, I think that had a significant effect on him, and that propelled him to come out as a strident opposition of pedophiles, because the founder of Centrepoint, Bert Potter, was eventually convicted of child abuse. He had about 4 or 5 convictions of interfering with young girls. And then his son was also convicted of similar offences. And I think that put Greg on, I don't know, I never spoke to Greg about his time at Centrepoint. I think that propelled him to being a vehement opponent of
pedophilia. So perhaps everything that happened there, obviously he was part of this community, and obviously this stuff come out about the leader of the cult, and also his son, which Greg knew both of these guys.
Yes. Yep.
Right. So yeah, that's his involvement with Centrepoint at the time. I know that Tam and Amanda, they touched on it in the interview that I did with them. So yeah, and also they say the same. You know, they have a feeling, you know, that ever since kind of all of those abuse allegations came out, Greg then started to read his books. Apparently beforehand he wasn't like homophobic at all, but when he started writing his books, he started to have some homophobic remarks in his books, and also as Tam says, that as she came out as a lesbian, he started to be very sort of homophobic towards her, but also he started to just have this how did you put it, a virulent hate for pedophiles. You know, that could possibly be down to maybe a guilt factor for being associated with Centrepoint and all that went on there, and maybe as to try and distance himself from those who were involved, and he could have possibly known it was going on as well. A real guilt there, and that may be why he has, you know, I mean, everyone disliked paedophiles, but he is obviously outspoken about it, and he was involved in a sex cult where child abuse happened. So it could very much be a guilt thing. I don't make accusations. You know, it could. Oh, we don't know. We don't know that for sure. Only the people that were there know. And that might be another factor into why he sort of says about this, but he never mentions that he was in Centrepoint, but this is a fact. I've got
video footage of him. So while he was at Centrepoint, I understand that he had a school-age girlfriend, so that might be another factor as well. Like, it's funny because I sort of knew him through, as I said, 87 through to mid-85 was my peak interaction with him. And during that time, he never actually mentioned Centrepoint. He was very good at compartmentalizing his anything that he said. I think he knew that I wouldn't believe it or wouldn't be interested in it. So he was very good at able to compartmentalize what he said.
Sure.
He was never obviously anti-gay or anything before he went there. I don't remember there being anything.
He wasn't anti-gay really until I came out. When I came out as a lesbian, then he got very anti-gay.
But he was probably anti-gay from that time.
Mm.
So all of this stuff probably comes from there. He doesn't probably want to be associated with what happened there. And either it's a guilt thing for being associated with a cult that had all this going on, or he may have been involved. We don't know. I'm not going to say that he was, and maybe he's ashamed, or maybe he just doesn't want people to know. The best way to do that is to be a figurehead in these paedophile rings, and obviously in some of his books he says a lot of homophobic remarks in his books. Actually, people that have read them, I haven't read them myself, have told me that. So, and like you say, he didn't seem to be homophobic or have any kind of real outspoken gripe against paedophilia before that cult was investigated. And so that's just my observation. But yeah, it probably is rooted from that. I spoke to some other people about his involvement in Centrepoint, but really that kind of all came crashing down.
Yeah, the mid 90s were the convictions of Bert Potter.
They brought convictions against the leader, Bert Potter, is it? Yep. In the mid 90s.
And everybody just thought, at first they thought I was cool, the communist was cool because it was, the 70s and it was, sexual experiences and free love and all the rest of it. And everybody's saying, oh yeah, it's cool. We've got one just down the road, sort of thing. But nobody knew what was really going on there.
Sure.
And when you went there to move in there, you had to give all your worldly donation, all your possessions. Everything. You had to give all your possessions, and it was just communal wardrobe. Everybody would just first up best dressed, basically. And when you left with nothing.
Right.
So people sold their houses and everything.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like Greg has his own cult now, and people are also
trying. He's trying.
Well, but it's working. He's got a lot of followers.
He's just ridiculous.